We are going to talk about the USDA numbers, the marketing strategy in a new economic environment. Right here with Jerry Gidel on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, how are you today? I think the big thing after the USDA report is to talk about the smaller soybean crop in the United States.
Oh, it definitely was the big surprise. You're exactly right, Luis. Ended up a combination of both lower than expected harvested numbers and also adjustments in yields. To some extent, they looked at their pod counts, and they were definitely lower than last year, and so that started in that direction. And that, to some extent, you can look to really the right areas out there west of the Mississippi about yield numbers being hurt by the dryness. Interestingly enough, also the big adjustments was Illinois, that went from 66 bushels a yield down to 64, and that is the most populous state here on soybeans. And so that did also contribute to the 1.5 or nearly 1.5 bushel decline down to 50.5 bushels that the USDA came up with. And the 150 million decline, they whacked away on exports and a little on crush. And so they kept their carryover stock at 200 million, but that doesn't leave a lot of room here if for some reason or other we have some further declines in the US yield here in the next few months.
Yes, how did you see the corn side of things?
Well, the corn side, uh, the yield scenario seemed to be right on target with the trade estimates. As we mentioned last week, I was 171 bushels, and I think on the yield nationwide, and I think that's still a possibility from that standpoint. The real big factor, though, was the reduced corn plantings by just about, well, actually, it was over 1 million on plantings, and it was 996,000 acres on harvested in that. And interestingly enough, actually Illinois and Iowa, Indiana went up, but boy, Minnesota down, Nebraska down, Kansas down, Texas down, Colorado down. There you go on that, and that gets back to the weather we've had out here, and to some extent, I think, and also the late plantings, things of that nature, did come through here and have some influence on both these acres. And that we definitely focused on the northern plains, South Dakota, parts of Minnesota, and North Dakota this spring when we got off to. Well, in many cases, they didn't really get started planting up there until late May and early June. But in some other states, definitely some impact there too.
Yes, and a lot of producers now are talking about storing some of their grain, but on the other hand, interest rates will be higher starting next week, right?
Oh yeah, that's another factor in there. Interest rates are part of it. I think the other question is that the storage relationships on things going forward here is it's a pretty standard. You usually have a dump charge of somewhere between 7 to 10 cents, and then you had say 3 cents a month for storage. And there's definitely not the price points out there in the cash are not really encouraging you to hang on to your corn at harvest time. And so, to some extent, when we did have this rally earlier this week, I, in that I was encouraging people to get up to the previous recommendations here at 45% on beans and 35% or more on corn, just because of the fact that this market's really looking at the needs right now, and to some extent, I think the domestic side of this market is really strong. We had another good set of data here from the uh, monthly NOPA number. It's slightly down from the average guess, but it's going to be projecting it right up against the USDA's number by within a 1 million or so of what we were projecting, and that and I still think that the pork and poultry areas will still be very strong because of price advantages there at the meat counter. So I don't see them making a lot of downward adjustments in demand from that standpoint. So I think those are the factors in there to at least at this point consider the idea, and it's a kind of a standard procedure that's been around many years of moving things when the prices and the basis levels are high, and then look to reposition it later in the season or on a seasonal type of idea here to go back and invest either in options or futures.
Yes, and considering wheat for the wheat growers, what they should do, I think there is a smaller world output for wheat. We just got the news that Argentina is having about 70% of its crop as poor or in very bad condition.
Exactly. I think that's the kind of the twist here. We've earlier in the week we got comments about how good the Australia crop was going to be, and then actually even today, one of the satellite uh, people out there that's prominent in the industry was talking about, well, maybe our Australia might not be as strong, but I think the key thing is that, like you just mentioned, Argentina's crop is. We've kind of went over this once or twice over the last month or 6 weeks. They, basically were pretty tough there. We had a little bit of rain, got something going, and it's really been the same. And it's going to be a factor here, even in corn, as we go forward here with the factors about that. Actually, someone was projecting or talking about that statement you just made as being part of the reason why wheat was strong today, and I don't disagree that from there and just there out here in the U.S. at the Southern Plains, there was a factor early in the week there was going to be a rainstorm go across Kansas here mid next week, but it doesn't look like it's as strong on that idea. We've got some shower activities here coming into the upper Midwest into the Minnesota, eastern Iowa, parts of Illinois, and that over this Sunday again. Hope it's not like last Sunday. Man, we had a 5-inch rain in my backyard. It wasn't every place, but because definitely it wasn't that strong downstate, or was it in, all that strong out west either. Because at this point, the heat that we continue to have here is generally speaking, is not a great trend if you're trying to make sure you've got strong late filling situations on soybeans.
Yes, and on the other hand, on the other side of the equation, I should say, it should be still very expensive to feed animals.
Oh, definitely very expensive from that standpoint. The interesting thing, surprisingly, the cattle prices are beef prices are hanging in there to justify kind of hanging in there feeding the beef at this point. Americans really got a taste for it, and even around the world, even the Chinese have decided beef isn't such a bad thing to put in their noodles over there. From that standpoint, the interesting twist on it is that the the prices usually in the world of hogs, at least, they sometimes have some pretty good dips here in the fall. We'll see how that occurs at this point with prices here a lot closer to the 3-digit level than it has in the past here for this time of year. So that's an interesting situation to keep in mind on. But the USDA has already adjusted down their feed demand for corn this year by about 300 million bushels or so. and the twist of it is that uh, last year we fed a lot of wheat, and the quality wasn't that as good. We got good quality soft bread. We've got pretty high protein wheat, and that, and then so and the one twist we might have is a few more bushels available from the sorghum side because the Chinese haven't been a big buyer of sorghum here this year like they have been in the past, and that. But to some extent, I think the feed demand number in the coming year is going to be interesting as to how it stands out there. The one real twist is that traditionally, when you have the strong basis levels we have right now on both corn and soybeans, sometimes that indicates that our carryover stocks on September 30th, when we get the final numbers for the current, or should say the old crop numbers that just finished up here in September 1, might actually be a little bit lower on maybe some crop size being overestimated last year. That'll be a real interesting twist as we look towards the end of the month.
Yes, and one of the things we are going to be watching next week is if the Federal Reserve in the United States increases the rate by 75 percentage points or 100.
Well, yeah, they've had kind of a 75 approach here. It was kind of interesting that the inflation rate was just 2/10 of a percent over expectations there at 8.3 versus 8.1. And we really got a beating here on the stock market this week. But from there, I guess it confirmed that they had a chance maybe for that one basis point increase at this point. I'd have to say probably uh, that the Fed might not go over the 7.5 because in general here, energy prices have really been on the soft downward trend at this point. Yes, food prices are an issue, in that I don't even know that the housing prices have been all that. Things have really cooled off in that world too because of what's happened here with the increasing interest rates and mortgage rates and stuff like that. Uh, the real twist in this, some people kind of feel like, oh, that's the direct impact on interest rates are going to end up weakening food and grain prices directly right away. I guess I'm a little bit. I've lived through some substantially higher rates than we've had now, uh, and we're not at 15 to 20% type situations and all that. But it's definitely a different trend than where we've been over the last 10 to 15 years. There's no doubt about that. So it's an interesting situation. The key thing is that I don't know that the size of Argentina's wheat crop or what's going on in the Black Sea and things like that. The fundamentals of that still could be an important factor on prices, despite the interest rate concerns that are out here, and that. But it's a part of livestock and grain production in the U.S. How much your interest rates are. Not everybody has all their money as working capital.
All right, that was Jerry Dell from the state of Illinois.
Thank you very much, and good to talk to a New Yorker, or excuse me, a New Jersey guy. I officially forgot where you lived.
Thank
Have a
you.
good. Take care.